Live with your host, Semantics King Jr.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry about that. From the continent of Africa to every corner of the world where its people call home, this is the Africa Desk Live. Every Saturday, this desk convenes rigorous, accountable dialogue on democracy, education, human rights, technology, and the future Africa is building for the continent and for every one of us in the diaspora. No noise, no agenda, just the truth pursued in public. Welcome to episode 2 of our Legacy series. And today, we're walking across the bridge of 27 years. This series is my introduction to you, like I promised during the sub launch last week, leading up to May 9. And today, I'm showing you up to the trenches that we started in Habel, Firestone, Liberia. So welcome to the show. Please let us know where you're joining from in the comment section and provide your feedback to us so that we can make improvements. Given that this is our second week of the show, we would love to hear from you. Let us know in the comment section. I will be looking at those comments later, but let me take a look. Let's take a look back rather in Liberia in 1999. Okay, and I'd love to show you my ID here. If you can see it, let me see whether this is going to work. Yep. So this was my ID. I started this in high school at the Haywood Mission. I was part of the press club for the Haywood Mission High School. And, the career that started there as a high school, journalist, moved into here at Stone FM. And you can see very young, just graduating, and then having dreams for the future about journalism in the country, in Liberia. So that's me. I have a picture of me in the studio in Firestone. Let me see if I can show you that just briefly here. Just going to be able to show you my screen. So let's see how this works. Okay. Oh, that might not look good. Okay. That is me there. You can see in studio in 1999 at Stone FM. It used to be known as Stone FM 106 at the time. And so that is how it started. Okay. Yep. So that period, while the country was gripped in the iron fist of the former Liberian President Charles Taylor's era, I was finding my voice in the Firestone corridors. And that ID, those IDs actually I showed you from the high school level and at Stone FM, isn't just a plastic, it's a survivor's badge. We are going to talk about what it meant to hold a microphone when the truth was dangerous, a commodity at the time. But first, we have to look at the now. Today is April 18, 2026, and the capital city of Monrovia and the Capitol building itself, which is a symbol of Liberia's legislative body, is on fire, not in flames, but with a constitutional crisis. Yesterday, the House of Representatives voted to expel its own in the name of Representative Yeke Koloba. He is a Liberian representative. For those of you who are watching us and who are not Liberians, he is a representative from, I think, District Number 10. And what that is happening, the legislature was ignoring a stay order from the Liberian Supreme Court back at Stone FM in 1999. We didn't have these, legal stand-ups because one man's word was the law. Today, Liberia's democracy is noisy, it's messy, and complicated. You know, very, very, very complicated. But while this is happening in Liberia, the Liberian president, Joseph Newman Boakai, is returning from Ethiopia with deals to fix Liberia's food security. We are a nation trying to grow while our leaders are locked in a power struggle in Monrovia. But I want to break this down. Um, I wanted to break this down with the uh, president of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Julius Kanubah. But Julius is currently in the thick of it all, mediating these various tensions. Julius, we know you are busy in the trenches. The seat is yours when you're ready. So I want to hear from you, those that are watching in the audience. I want to really, really hear from you. I'm going to flip over to look at the comments section. Drop it in the chat and go back. Let's go way back to 1997 up to 2000. And just reflect a little bit on which radio station you used to lock into. There were several radio stations that were operating in the country at the time. Which was it? Just drop in the comment section so we know which radio stations. I mean, I don't want to begin to call names of several of them, but just off my head, when you think about Star Radio, that was the standard of ethical, standardized journalism in Liberia. We had the ELBC, which is the state broadcaster. We had Radio Veritas, which was a Catholic radio station. And some of the popular names at the time were Ledger Hureni, who I think was a Minister of Information during the WIA administration. And our own Minnesota-based Sarah Wallace, those were names we used to hear on Radio Veritas. And Star Radio, we have prominent name, even a fellow of mine who started with me at Stone FM, Moses Wenyu, was at Star Radio at some point. And I think even Julius Kanubah, who is the current president, he was also at Star Radio, and several other names that I may not remember now. And let us know in the chat section what radio station you used to listen to, and when you went to the newsstand, which newspaper were you hunting for? Was it the news newspaper? Was it the Inquirer newspaper? Was it the New Democrat? Tell me your favorite station, favorite radio station, and newspaper from that era in the comment section. And let's see who remembers those legends. So let me go into the comment section and see here. Yeah. Joining from Monrovia. Thank you very much, Harriet. Solomon is joining from, one of the stations he's naming is DC 101. Absolutely. I used to listen to DC 101 as well. It was a great station, Alan is joining from Maryland, Washington, DC. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. And for those of you who are just joining us, let us know. This is what I call a legacy segment, which is just me introducing myself to you so you get to know who I am. Because it's very typical nowadays where anyone with a cell phone and a microphone can get up and have a talk show, and rightly so. This is we now live in a digital world. So anyone can get up with things they have and do what they want to do. But we wanted to introduce ourselves to our audience for now and in the future as to where we've come, where we've been, and where we're headed. So thank you so much for some of you who have dropped your comments, and welcome to the show from Monrovia, Harriet. Pauline, Minnesota, watching. Thank you, Pauline. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much. And so think back again for some of you, and for the Gen Z who were born maybe in 1997 to 2000, they may not remember this period in Liberia's history, and that's fine. But for those who were living before that period, like they were either very young or they knew what was happening in the country, you can let us know what radio station you used to listen to, what newspaper you used to go to the stand to look at. So yes, let us know in the comment section. I will come back to the comment, but let me go back to the people who set the stage for us. We cannot talk about Stone FM, where I started, or Star Radio, where some of my colleagues work, without talking about those who didn't make it up to 2026. Okay, 2026 rather. There are prominent names in the Liberian media circle that I cannot remember all right now because in the 80s I was very young, I may not remember, but there were some names that were very prominent. And among them was the world known Charles Bayon. Although he was not in the period that existed during Chancellor's administration and others, he was a star in the Liberian media, who was brutally murdered during the coup, I think in 1985, when our former president Samuel Doe was leading that group. He is a prominent Liberian, and we remember in 2000 the so-called espionage arrest of some foreign and local crews in Monrovia. You know, these individuals paved the way with their blood. And when you think about those days back then, it was a challenge. It was difficult to be in the media. Today, not so much, because yes, there are challenges in parts of the world as it relates to press freedom. But those days in the 80s, in the 70s, perhaps, in the 90s were very challenging, were very difficult. It took courage to be a media practitioner in Liberia. And when we take a look at the modern days, okay, we have, you know, people who are standing there. They're still standing. They're doing the work of informing the Liberian people, entertaining and educating the Liberian people. I want to salute a few of those publishers, editors, and reporters who are still taking the heat. And prominent among them is Rodney Sear, a friend whom I have sometimes written some articles for his newspaper, The Front Page Africa. Perhaps the most globally recognized Liberian journalist he is. His platform remains the gold standard for investigative work. Though he is often inundated with a lot of requests, both local, national, and international, for appearances on talks like this one, he remains a gold standard. He has gone through a lot in the Liberian media landscape. And then obviously the current president of the Press Union of Liberia, Julius Kanubah, he um, is at the forefront of the fight against the Gender-Based Online Abuse and Harassment Act of 2026, which many see as a backdoor to censoring journalists. And another name that comes to mind is Alfonso Tar. He is um, the president of the Publishers Association of Liberia, and he is also the publisher of the New Republic newspaper. Recently, he was inducted recently, I might add that there. But just going beyond him being the publisher for the New Republic, and then being the president of the Publishers Association, he's also a veteran, a Reuters correspondent, and a massive titan, I would say, in the media industry in Liberia. And you don't want to also leave out Ba Sema G. Best. He is the managing director of the Daily Observer newspaper. He is carrying on the legacy of the Kenneth Best family. Kenneth Best, a long-time veteran journalist of the Daily Observer. Um, Sema was recently elected to the leadership of the Publishers Association as well, and it's a critical link between the old guard and the modern media era we have in Liberia. Editors like Otello Gabla, okay, he is the editor for the New Dawn. He is the outgoing president of the Publishers Association of Liberia and a key figure at the New Dawn. He remains highly influential in editorial circles. And, you know, I don't want to also forget the late Philip N. Wiesen of the Inquirer newspaper. He was a real towering individual managing that newspaper. Although recently, there's a young pressing Winnie Sewa Jimmy, who has taken over the role, is a rising leader in the Publishers Association and a prominent female voice in a traditionally male-dominated editorial space. And then there is Helena Sami, a woman who who defines, I should say, the trenches. She is the publisher and CEO of the Women Voices newspaper. She is a force of nature in Liberia's media landscape. There is a whole story about her that I read. And then there is on the ground crew, okay? Lincoln G. Peters and Stephen Feluger, the guys who are at the Capitol building right now, making sure we know exactly what happened with that Kanubah vote. And I don't also want to leave out the amazing May Azango of the Front Page Africa, also collaborating with the new narratives. She's a fearless investigative reporter known for her work on female genital mutilation and human rights. She is deeply respected and often works in the field, I would say, rather than behind the desk. So these are individuals that I really respect, and I just wanted to use this time to honor them and let my viewers know about them, especially for viewers who are not Liberians. You may not have heard those names or even known anything about them. And then when you go beyond that, we don't also want to forget about some of the legal and academic watchdogs. Prominent names that come to mind. He was also in the trenches those days is Kwame Clement, a former broadcaster. He's now a legal dean. He is often consulted on the intersection of media law and free speech. He is a huge media figure in Liberian circles. Obviously, now a politician, but I wouldn't want to also forget Tiawan Say Gonglo. Okay, he's a lawyer. His recent commentaries in the New Dawn newspaper, as of this April, regarding the treasonable speech versus free expressions, are the primary talking points for editors right now within the Liberian media circle. So I just wanted to use that time to recognize them and honor them because of the things they are doing. So if you've never heard of those names, check them out. Maybe Google them, and then you get to know who they are. They're doing an amazing job in the Liberian media circle. So thanks to each and every one of them. There is someone watching from Liberia as well. Thank you, Benicia. Welcome to the show. Thank you. Welcome to the show. I will take a short break, and then I will be right back so that we can continue with the show. So please allow me to take just a brief break. Let me see where I can find that,
Africa. Echoes from the dunes of time, a million stories in our stride. We rise as one, a single heartbeat strong, where every voice belongs. A golden sun upon our face, united by this time and place, our legacy will shine.
Welcome back to the show. My journey did not end at Stone FM in Monrovia. That was just the beginning of the fire. As we move through this legacy series towards May 9, I'm going to show you how that young journalist with the ID card that I showed you, how he has evolved into who he is today. And do not, I do not want to lose sight of the fact that this is still the legacy segment. It's a series that is going to go on today. And next Saturday, we will be joined by someone from the refugee camp where we live and work together. And then um, after that, the Saturday after that will be a former, well, not former, he's still a friend of mine, but he is a fellow, a permanent fellow at the World Press Institute, just like I am. He, myself, and 8 others traveled extensively across the United States in 2006 during our journalism fellowship, and we visited several institutions across the United States. There were so many things happening during that time. It was the same period of time that the former Liberian president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, was elected to be president in Liberia. Some of you may know or may not know about her leadership. She spent 12 consecutive years, I believe, the first 6 years of her tenure, and then the second 6 years, because Liberia, the presidency has a 6 year tenure. So when you're elected president, you lead the nation for 6 years, unlike here in the United States, where it's a 4 year term. It's 4 year, and then you go back for the next 4 years. In Liberia, it's 6 good years. So you have an entire period of over a decade to to lead, which is very interesting. I don't know of any other African countries that may have that system in place where you elect the presidency for 6 years. There might be other African countries where you have this thing happening, but like I mentioned, I didn't research this. I don't know much about it, but she was president for 12 good years. The first 6 years were trying to rebuild Liberia from the war that we experienced, and then the second 6 year period was a time she eventually concluded her tenure, and then after that, as you all are aware, we had elections in which Ellen's vice president, the current president, Joseph Numa Boakai, was running against the former soccer star of Liberia, George Weah. And George Weah won that election, I think, after a second round or something like that. And then after George Weah, now we went back recently, and then we had an election in which George Weah lost. He couldn't really follow the path that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf took, in which Ellen had the first 6 years and then the second 6 year period. George Weah had only his first 6 years. There are debates and discussions right now about his comeback in 2029. So he wasn't re-elected, and then Ellen's former vice president, whom she did not endorse during the period of the elections, became president. So he's now the president for Liberia, and we are seeing what his presidency is doing. And I mean, I'm not a politician, but if you ask politicians from different, you know, regions of Liberia, they will tell you their opinions, what they feel, what they think about his presidency. Is he doing better? Is he doing bad? Is he doing worse? So it's all subjective. These are opinions from people, from politicians, you know. So he is doing what the people elected him to do um, in Liberia at the moment. So that is what is happening right now. And I'm going to take a look at um, some comments again. Congratulations. I was waiting for this. Welcome, Emmanuel. Welcome, Emmanuel. Tanisha, welcome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I think you're joining us from the United Kingdom. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, Tanisha. Tanisha is welcome to the show. It's a friend from the UK. Welcome to the show. And we love having you. Thank you so much. Drop in the comment, please, for those of you who are just joining us. If you're Liberian and you remember the radio station you used to listen to during 1997 and 2000, let us know which radio station was your favorite. If you used to go to the newsstand and to look for newspapers, which was your favorite? Which was the newspaper you used to go to look for, to read? Because that was a period in Liberia's history that was very defining. There was a 1996 April 6th war, and then before 1997, and there were several, wars that were fought, I should say, during that period of time. But if you remember any radio station you used to watch or listen to, or any newspaper you used to read, let us know in the comment. And yes, thank you so much for joining us on the show here. Now, like I mentioned, you do not want to mix next Saturday. Do not miss next Saturday because I'm going to take you across the border to Bujumbura in Ghana. We are going to talk about the human rights newspaper I co-founded in a refugee camp, a voice that was for displaced Liberians. And I know we want to go into details next week talking about that. We may even show you pictures of the newspaper that we had at the time. And if allowed, we might even show you a clip or two about that. But let me give you a little background about the newspaper, right? So when I went to Ghana, and I was living there as a refugee, I was also enrolled in a journalism school. So I used to commute between Accra, the city itself, and Bujumbura refugee camp. But there was a particular news story that was, published in one of the local Ghanaian newspapers, okay? And the newspaper had insinuated, not means it reported that Liberian refugees in Ghana were prostitutes, they were armed robbers, they were criminals, without even talking to any of the refugees, without talking to any of the refugee leadership, because the refugee had its own leadership. It used to be known as the Liberian Refugee Welfare Council. Okay, and at the time there were two different leaders that I interacted with. There's Madam Ibrahim, who was president for the Liberian Refugee Welfare Council, and then there was Mr. Hine. I think Mr. Hine is now living in Canada. So these leaders represented the voices of refugees in Ghana at the time. But this local newspaper reported that Liberian refugees were prostitutes. They were armed robbers. They were drug dealers without talking to anyone. And so when I saw that newspaper while I was driving, on the bus, I indicated that that newspaper had the propensity to endanger the lives of the refugees. I even took this paper to class to discuss this newspaper. And just like I had predicted, I think a day or two or thereabout, it led the Ghanaian military to actually move on the refugee camp with the full military power that Ghana has, with sniffer dogs and everything on the camp. And they rounded up all young men from age 15, I believe, all the way, because they were looking for drugs. They were looking for arm robbers. They were looking for prostitutes, if you will, right? And that singular story, that particular story published about Liberians and the effect of that story inspired me to think about having a voice for Liberian refugees themselves, where they would be reporting about events in the camp. And so um, we were able to establish the Vision newspaper, which was actually reporting events in the camp about Liberian refugees, about the things that were happening in the camp, and what could international agencies do about that. We distributed the newspaper free to the refugees as well as to embassies accredited to Accra. I brought that story up, and the next guest, the guest for next Saturday, and I were going to be talking about this. I brought that story up to tell you the power of the media. It can be very powerful in making an impact, whether it's positive impact or negative impact. And that is one such impact that reporting had on the refugees in the refugee camp, which is why it's so incredibly important to have standards. Nowadays, I am not sure whether many media institutions in this era of, you know, the digital world we live in, whether those standards are still being adhered to. But here on this show, I can assure you that we will follow those standards. In fact, we have drafted our editorial chapter that outlines the things that we will do here and the things we will not do. We've also outlined our code of conduct for how we interact with each other. Because remember, this is a brand new show. We are just trying to build a movement. We're trying to build something out of this. We have established the code of conduct. We will not, as we begin to bring guests on the show, because for these next weeks it's all Liberia and Ghana, and then part of that the US. But after that, we're going to expand it into other guests across the region in Africa, with beginning with guests from additional areas in West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, and North Africa. We've already lined up some potential interview guests that we're going to be having on the show. So it's no longer just going to be about Liberia. This week, next week, and the week after is just all about Liberia and us, only because we want to be able to introduce ourselves to you. And so this is very critical. The standards involved in doing something like this are very high, and there is an expectation to live up to the standards. If you do not live up to those standards, it becomes very compromising for you as an individual, as well as for the product of your work. And we want to be able to have a product that is vetted, is fact based, it's not based on rumor, it's not attacking each other, insulting each other. No, that is not going to be happening on this show. That's not the goal of this show. Okay. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Watching from, Matthias is watching from Norway. Welcome. Welcome to the show, Matthias. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, Emmanuel, the Vision newspaper. That was the newspaper that we established over there. And thank you. So that is what we did on the refugee camp at the time. It was a very impactful work that we did. A couple of my friends, including Emmanuel Nimwele, who is on the call actually, was a part of this team. Helping go around, do some interviewing of the camp manager, who at the time was the leadership representing the Ghanaian government, and then the Liberian leadership on the other hand, Mr. Francis Hina, who was the president of the Liberian Refugee Welfare Council, and then there was Rufus Quena. Those were friends of mine in the trenches, in the Bujumbura refugee camp, you know, trying to make sense of what was happening to Liberian refugees. Because refugees, for those of you who don't know, could be arrested, okay, um, at any time on a refugee camp. They could be arrested by anyone and be taken to anywhere without anyone actually speaking up for them. Even though we had the Ghanaian leadership represented by the camp governor, and then the Liberian leadership, on the other hand, trying to seek the welfare of the refugees, there were things that could happen literally to any refugee, and nothing could happen to anyone, to anybody. Well, maybe someone might say, someone who might watch this tomorrow, who could be a Ghanaian or another nationality, might say, well, there are many things that happen to even common Ghanaian citizens, right? Common Nigerian citizens. They got missing and nothing happens. I understand that and I absolutely agree. But this is slightly different though, because this is a refugee camp that was established for refugees. And so if this is established for refugees, it has the approval of the UNHCR, it has the approval of the Ghanaian government, then something has to be done to sort of provide security, right, for the refugees. The same way it provides security for other citizens, right? So that was the expectation, but that was not the case. It was kind of different in this case, you know. Thank you, Pee Wee, joining from Monrovia, Liberia. Welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you so much. So it was it was a slightly different situation here, but it's something that is worth mentioning because refugees, many things do not have a voice. They do not have a say. That is true to some extent when it comes to the political activities in the host country. Refugees have no right to participate in those activities, right? In terms of elections campaigns, you know, and other activities that are solely for the citizens of the host country. Refugees cannot participate in those unless they change their status, perhaps become local citizens themselves. Then maybe they can participate in those. So I understand that point, but it is the responsibility of the host government to protect refugees, has always been the case, with the help and leadership and direction of the UNHCR. And this was the case with the Liberian refugee camp. But during that period on the camp, anything could happen to any refugee. And basically, nothing could happen to you if you do anything bad to refugees, right? Maybe there were instances where um, some measures were taken to make sure refugees were protected. But largely speaking, it was a place that was very difficult to live, very challenging area to live. But Liberians survived, very resilient. They survived there. Today, I believe there are still people living on the refugee camp. I believe that, that yes, it is deep, Mr. Aiku. Welcome to the show from Winnipeg, Canada. Welcome to the show, Mr. Aiku. It is deep. Yes, it is very, very deep. And those were the experiences we had there. And so I am going to be bringing someone on the show next week who is going to be, we're going to be discussing what we went through, how what we did on the refugee camp prepare us to where we are today. And that is going to be coming up as well next Saturday. Please, if you've never, let me just take this time to ask you, if you've never shared this show before, please go ahead and share this show. and like it, and tag a friend. It could be a coworker, it could be a family member, it could be your boss, anyone. Tag them and tell them about the show that we just launched, a very brand new show here that is going to be discussing things that impact Africans living abroad and then Africans living on the continent. Dealing in technology, in healthcare, in human rights, in women's rights and children's rights. So please tag someone, please share it. The reason why I'm asking this is that I'm hosting the show right now on my personal profile because I have more than 1,000 followers. So I'm able to host the show on my profile. I am not able to do that on the show's page because why? It has just been established and we do not have that many followers yet. So the more you talk to people about it, the more people get to know about the show, the more they follow it, the better it gives us a chance to be able to broadcast the show live on the page itself rather than on my profile as an individual. Obviously, it's a page that I created. It makes sense that way, but we want to be able to, you know, run the show live on its own page, and then everyone can be aware of that page. So please share the show. Thank you, Mercy. Thank you for joining from Liberia. Welcome to the show. We appreciate all of you who are watching us. Share the show if you've not done it yet. Please share the show with your friends, your coworkers, your family. Anywhere they are. Tell them. I know some of you have coworkers who are from different parts of Africa, right? Share the show with them. West Africans, North African, Central Africans, South Africans, Southern Africans. Share the show with them because this is a show for them. And we are going to be inviting people from those regions of Africa to talk about things impacting the livelihood of those people in those local areas. For instance, there is a story that I read, and we intend to bring a Nigerian expert coming up after the Legacy series, who's going to talk to us about Nigeria. Rather, there are some projections that have been made about Nigeria's prowess, its abilities. Nigeria is a very popular West African country, both in terms of human resource, in terms of its technology. You have lots and lots of young people, brilliant young people, educated in Nigeria, but many leaving Nigeria for greener pastures. Why is that? Why? They're leaving. They don't want to stay in Nigeria the same way someone might not want to stay in Ghana. If the governments in Africa were doing things that are important for the citizens of these countries, perhaps these young citizens, these young Africans would stay, right? They will stay, but they are leaving. So we will be bringing an expert to talk to us about some of these things happening on the continent of Africa and find a way. How can we stop that or slow that down? Because obviously you cannot stop people from traveling, right? You cannot. But if you have a very secure atmosphere in your countries, for instance, in Nigeria, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, and other parts of Africa, if there is security, there are opportunities for jobs, there are opportunities for learning. Maybe there are a lot of opportunities for learning in Nigeria. That might not be so for, say, for instance, Liberia and Sierra Leone and other countries. But if you have these opportunities in these areas and you empower young people where they can have jobs, to become independent, I don't think they will want to just leave Africa to go and live abroad permanently. If anything, they might only go to visit, So we will be doing that. Okay. We'll be doing that. And so that is what is going to be happening for us next week. And I won't be alone when I'm doing the show next week, like I am today, unfortunately. But next week I won't be alone. My guest next week is a former reporter of mine, from the Budu refugee camp. Today, he is a prominent official working for the Liberian government, right? We are going to talk about going from the refugee camp to the corridors of power. And we're going to be discussing that next week. But just before we go for a break, which is going to be letting us wind down the show gradually, I want you to please share the show with your friends. Okay. Invite them to the show next week. Uh, Let them know that this is their platform. And if they have topics to talk about, if even you know of anyone that has an idea or is an expert in certain areas or something like that, you can recommend the individual. I have received some recommendations from last week's show, and we have followed up with some of those recommendations. And they are willing to come to talk to the people of Africa about the things that are impacting them on the continent of Africa as well as here abroad. So please share the show with your friends and your relatives as well. So let me take one brief break, and then we can wrap this thing up.
The intricate weaving of disparate voices into a singular, harmonious existence, exploring how individual differences create a stronger collective. A woven tapestry of resonance, yeah.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us again. Please drop your comment in the chat section. For those of you who I asked on earlier to tell us about the radio station you used to listen to when you're in Liberia, or the newspaper you used to read, if you remember any, please drop it in the comment section just so we know, or maybe talk about it. And going in the future on this show, we will be having a session where people actually can call in. I send a link, people call in, and then contribute to the show. I'll be sending a link into the chat room where you can click on the link and then you can make a call. I think it allows you to talk for about a minute or so. Yeah. You don't have to use any cell phone as long as you have your well, not a cell phone in terms of having a number to dial. Okay, you don't need a number to call. I dropped the link in the chat. You just click on that link, whether it is on your cell phone or on your computer, and then you join the show. You can contribute. You can ask questions to the guests. You can make contributions. Meaning you can comment on an issue that is dear to your heart. We will be doing those. We'll be leaving the maybe final 10 minutes in the show to do that. We'll be allowing that to happen. Um, Welcome to the show, Mado. Thank you for joining us live from Monrovia. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, and welcome to the show. Thank you. We will be doing that. We allow you to call in for those of you, because I know some of you are behind the screen, but you want to say something. You want to say something, but you don't want to limit it just in the chat, right? You may want to share an opinion or maybe something you're concerned about, and we can call you into the show, and then you can contribute. Also, we are looking for your feedback. If what you're watching is something interesting to you or it's not interesting to you, just let us know. Make a comment about, can we make an improvement here? Can we do an improvement there? Just let us know. We welcome feedback anytime, any day, because we want to make this show your show. We want to make this show about you. This week, however, and next week, and the week after that, it's all about me introducing myself to you, because many people who may be watching may not know me, right? And they want to know who I am. Who is this Mantis guy? Where is he coming from? Why should I even, listen to him? For those living in Africa, especially, who have to buy data to log onto their social media platform, might be wondering, why should I spend my money to buy data and listen to you? But this is the reason why, just telling you who I am and what the goal of this platform is, what it's going to be doing. And so this is the show that is going to be discussing, um, things on the continents that are affecting Africans, both in the diaspora as well as on the continent of Africa. So we will be discussing those events going forward. So, yes, let me know in the comment section there what you think. Or you can even send us a message on Facebook and say, hey, I didn't want to make a comment on the live show, but here's what I think. You can drop me a message on Messenger so that we can follow up, because we want to make this show a better show. We want to make the show a show that people can listen to, because we want to bring a standard that is high. There's an expectation to live up to the standard, and we want to be able to live up to the standard that is expected of us, which is why, like I mentioned, we have drafted our code of conduct. We welcome comments and disagreements, even debate, but we would not, welcome attacking each other or saying things that are disrespectful to others, especially if somebody is a guest or somebody is making a call, on the show. You attack them and you say mean things about them. This is not going to be a show for that. Okay, this is going to be a very respectful show where people can disagree to agree. They can have civil dialogue. Discuss things that are impacting you. Okay, how is the work that is being done in Monrovia today? For instance, the suspension of a representative, Yeka Kanubah. How is that helping you put food on the table in Liberia? How? How is that? And then we'll go to Cameroon, for instance. The Pope, Leo the 14th visited Cameroon a few days ago. And he moved around Cameroon, and I think there are other West African countries he's going to go through as well. That's a good thing, because while he's on a peace visit, discussing peace and things like that, which is a good thing. We want peace, all of us. Does that help also to put food on the table for you and your families in Cameroon? There is an election in Benin, I believe, and then there is a re-election of Denis Sassou Nguesso, of another West African leader, right, who has been in leadership for a while. And African people keep re-electing some of these leaders in power. How is that making life better for the common person on the streets of Cameroon, of in Yaoundé, in Monrovia, in Lagos? So this is where we dissect some of these things. Is one thing to have a very big headline or have a very big news about something happening. We want to drill down. How is that helping people on the ground? How is that impacting people's lives? Is it in the negative way? Is it in the positive way? And this is the show where we'll be looking at these things, right? And so I welcome you. Please share the show. Encourage your friends to join. Thank you, John. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much, John. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, John. Thank you. Welcome to the show. And like I was saying, I know you have co-workers, and I know some of you are working on Saturday, and it's fine. You can be at your work if your work allows you. We don't want you to break the rules at work. But if you're working and you have a little bit of a break, maybe even for 5-10 minutes, you can join the show, contribute through comment section or even a call in, and let us know what you think. We appreciate you, but please don't forget to share the show, okay, with your coworkers, with your friends, because we want to be able to hit certain level of followers on the page itself, so that next time we'll be able to broadcast on the page of the show and not necessarily here, okay. So, and with 6 minutes left to my time to be over here. I know I've been talking just by myself, but I just wanted to tell you more. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely, Emmanuel. Absolutely. This is not a show where people are going to be attacking each other. No, you know, conversation here will be educative, civil. Okay. You can disagree with me. You can disagree with Emmanuel without attacking his personality. Okay. We can be civil and still carry on a successful dialogue. So this is going to be that show here. And I like to say thanks to all of you who joined me from Monrovia. Many of my um, commenters actually are from Monrovia, which is their hometown. Thank you. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, each and every one of you who joined from Monrovia, and to my friend and brother from Winnipeg, I could thank you for joining, and all my other friends and brothers across the United States here, John, Emmanuel, and my brother Matthias, way in Norway. Thank you for joining the show. And my friend Tanisa from the United Kingdom, thank you for joining the show. Alan from Maryland, thank you. Pauline from Minnesota, thank you for joining. Solomon from I think Texas, but it's based now in Minnesota. Thank you. My own niece from Monrovia, Harriet. Thank you for joining the show. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And several other of you that joined the show. Thank you. Thank you. And all my in-laws and family in Monrovia, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate that. Next week, like I mentioned, I am going to be bringing somebody who is going to be here. It's going to be a conversation he and I are going to be having. We're going to be having a conversation, which is going to tell you that it does not matter where you may be now. What you are doing now may count. It will definitely be important for you in the future. Do not overlook whatever you are doing right now. If you are going to school to learn something, learn it. Put your entire heart and soul into it. You never know where that might lead you tomorrow. If you're learning a trade, please go ahead, learn it to the best of your ability. You never know where that trade may lead you tomorrow. Okay? Do it at the best of your ability, because that defines who you are. And when you sit back years later and say, oh, look at where I've come from, you think about that and you give yourself a pat on the back and say, I've done something important. And so thank you so much. As we look forward to the show, there are several things that are going to be happening on the show, like I mentioned. But this Saturday is going to be a friend of mine who's going to be on the show. I'm Semantics King. I have been your host. Thank you for joining me for this episode 2. Keep those comments going on in the chat. Even after the show is over, I'm going to go revisit them. I'm going to read every one of those comments, and the stations you leave there, the radio stations you watch, the newspapers you listen to. I'm gonna really read those comments and then provide feedback. So until next Saturday, for the Bumbura Chronicles, please stay informed, please stay engaged, please stay accountable. And whatever you are doing, do it at the best of your ability. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Just do the best you can. It has been me, Semantics King, and thank you so much for watching with me. And please don't forget to share the show with your friends, with your relatives, with your co-workers, and everybody else. Again, this is a recording. You can even watch it later if you miss the live. You can share the very recording you're going to be seeing later on your timeline. You can share with friends as well.
Ooh, Africa. We choose the path of permanence to build a high fidelity